this is Paula from Land of Craft, and in this video I'm going to show you how to make the stained glass patchwork in Mbird that you saw in our last video. So let's get started. I'm going to click on Mbird first to open her up. Now this is the process I normally go through first. You might do something different, but I always go to Editor first and just choose my hoop and just make sure that my hoop is selected, which it is here. So that's fine. I'm going to go OK. And then I come over to the studio icon there and click on that one. Now if it doesn't work for you when you click on the studio icon, it probably means you haven't purchased the plugin. It is a separate plugin than the standard Mbird that you get. Now I'm going to make this background here, it's all very big at the moment. I'm going to make it a bit smaller by clicking on this icon here, and then I right click to make it smaller. Okay, we'll start there. Now I want to create a square first of all. I want to create that outline so that, remember in the first video we stitched the outline, so it showed you where everything was. That's what we're going to do first. So I'm going to click on this one here. Then I'm going to just click somewhere over here. Just doesn't matter too much where. So that's the start point. Now I want to go to shape up here on the menu and choose rectangle. And I'm going to draw a rectangle from a square actually from about here to here. It doesn't have to be perfect, don't worry about it, just anything like that. Let the mouse go, and then right click to elements, and you notice how that little start point we had has suddenly popped up here. That's actually the start point where the machine will start sewing. The machine's going to start from there and stitch around and then come back to that point there. So that's the start point, but we're going to be moving that in a minute, so I'll show you how. Okay, but right click again and then finish object. Okay, now we've got a square, but I want this to be 5 by 5, exactly 5 by 5, and I know it's not because down here it says 4.8 by 5.62. Now I could drag that around if I want to match that, but there's an easier way and a more accurate way. So what you want to do is come over here to transform. Where are you? That one there, transformations. You click on that one, and then you want this little icon here, the little square with the up and down arrows. And here are the measurements here. So I'm going to uncheck this one because otherwise if I just move these up, notice the bottom one moves up as well. I don't want that. So I want to uncheck that one. And then I want this 5 by 5. So I'm just going to click on the arrow here. And that gives us a little pop-up. And I'll change that one to 5. And tick it. And the same here. I want to change that one to 5 as well. And tick. And then apply. Don't forget to click apply here. Alright, awesome. So now we have a 5 by 5. You can see down here it says 5 by 5 inch. You can make this any size you like. I mean, if your hoop's larger and you want a larger patchwork, fine, go for it. Okay, so I'm going to just center this on this background here. So we come over to transform, and we want to center, bring to center, this one here. Okay, so that just gets it centered for us. Now, remember we said that the start point was here. If I right click now and go edit, see our start point's there. Now I don't want it there. If you remember back in the video, our start point was actually here. It stitched around this way, stopped here, and then came along and started the swirly lines. So I want to really move that over to here. So the way to do that is actually to add a node here. So I'm just going to zoom in a bit just to show you. Okay, that's a little better. Now I'll right click again and edit. Now for some reason if you right click, notice if I've got it blue there, if I right click nothing happens, and in fact it starts messing things up. You actually have to make sure this is selected first before you can right click and edit. So just come over to the sidebar here, I'll just drag this in. Make sure it's selected, see how it comes up in red now? Then you can right click and edit. Okay. Alright, so I want to move this over to here, and I said before the way to do that is to add a node here. So to add a node here, I need to select this line, okay? And to do that, I click on here. If you notice, once I click on there, I've got this little arrow. That means that line's selected. If I clicked on this one over here, you see there's an arrow here. That means that line's selected, okay? So I'll come back to this one, click on that, and once it's selected, I can right-click now and go insert. And you see how it's put a little node here? Now I could actually drag that up to where I want it, but I'm just going to actually add another node about here. So I'm going to click on that again to make sure I get my arrow, and right click and insert. Okay, so that's good. Now it's not technically exact where I want it yet. I really want it probably on one of these grid lines, because what I want it to do, if you remember in our video, it sort of started here But what it did is it ended exactly on the same line. And the reason we want it to end exactly on the same line, we want it to start and end at exactly the same spot. And the reason we want that is we want to be able to join the patchworks together. If you want to make a quilt or a bag or something, you want those flowy lines to seamlessly flow from one patchwork to the next. Okay, so I'm going to start it on one of these grid lines. I want this on one of the grid lines and the end of it on one of these grid lines. So let's come over here first of all and choose this one here, snap to grid first of all. And that'll just help us snap our nodes to the grid lines. So I'm going to click on this one now and then drag it down just to that line there, right? It's snapped into place just then. So that's good. That's our starting point, although technically not our starting point yet. This is still our starting point. We have to say to this now that you are our starting point. So with it highlighted, I click on it to highlight it and right click and go place start point here. Okay. I know that seemed like a lot of work, but it's actually quite simple when you do it without telling people how to do it, but there you go. So that's now the start point. The machine is going to start from this point and come around and finish here. Okay, so the next step is to create our first swirly line along here. Okay, so the way to do that is to come down here. I'm going to just tick this so it sort of saves everything. Okay, so we want to come down here to this one here. Click on that. So you see we've got our little node there, so we know where we're going to start. So I'm going to click on that one. And then I'm going to come to the middle here, click around there, it's somewhere in the middle, and then come along here and click here. And then I'm going to, because we've got, what we need to do actually is select this one here, snap to object edges. This blue line box here is the object, and we want these nodes to snap to these lines so that it's exact. So if I see how I've got it quite close there now, if I click and just bring it over, you watch it snap. See how it's snapped to there? If I bring it back again and try again. If I bring it close, it snaps. It automatically snaps. So you know you've got a perfect alignment there. Now do try and get these lines nice and even if you can. Don't worry too much if they're not perfect. So now we want to create the curve, and this is actually quite simple. You see on this line we've got a square, a circle, a square, a circle, and a square. You just want to play with the circles, don't touch the squares. Okay, so what you want to do is grab the first one, click and hold with your mouse, and then bring it up. And you notice how it's snapped into place there? That's because we've got this one selected, the snap to grid. It's going to snap to the grid lines. Now this one here, we click on it, and then drag it down and you watch it snap again as I get closer. See, it's snapped into place. And there you go, that's actually our first swirly line. You see how simple that was. Now I'm going to right click and go finish object. Awesome, all right. So that's your first swirly line. Now, when you saw the first video, you saw it stitch around here, and then it came down here and stitched around here. So we've got to have a connecting line down here. It's actually going to stitch over the other line, but that's okay, you want it to. So it's going to stitch down here. So we need a connector, and that's what this one is here. So you click on this one from the sidebar, and you see how it's got the end point there. That's great. So we don't have to click on there, it's already there. But we come down and we choose another grid line that we want to work with, right? So I'm going to go with this one, probably 1, 2, 3, 4 up. And I'm going to click just a little bit out of it. Okay, and then I'm going to click and hold and bring it across to snap. There we go. And then same with this one. Bring it across and snap. That's the line, that's the connecting line. So I'm going to right click and finish the object. Okay, now we want this other swirly line along here. So we come back up to this one from the sidebar and click on that. And we've got the starter there, that's good. And we can click in the middle, and then on the other side just close to it again, and then click and hold with the mouse and snap. And again, tidy up these a bit, try and get them straight. There we go. Now I'm going to do the same again. I'm going to drag this one up till it clicks that grid line, snap. Same with this one, bring it down and snap, and then right click, finish object. Okay, All right, now we need to come around. Remember, it comes around here in the video, we saw that, and then it stitches up this way. So we want a connecting line from here, down here, and across here. So back to this one here, click on that. Got the start one already there. So come down here, I'm just going to click a little bit out and then drag it back. Okay, snap it in. So if I can get this one a little better. Okay, something like that. And then I want to bring it along here, and I'll probably go 1, 2, 3, 4, probably here, I think. Click there and then drag it down to snap. Okay, let's try again. Okay, and right click and finish object. Okay, you see how quick this is going? Okay, now we want the swirly line up the top. So we click on this one here. Got the start already there. So we come up to the middle and then, oops, just bring that back. Okay, oops, I'm going to have to start that again. So I'll start that again, click on that one. All right, just click there, scroll up, click the top, just a bit closer to it, and then click and drag and snap it. Okay, and then tidy up again. Okay, that's pretty good. All right, and I'm going to now do the swirl, so I'll click on the circle, bring it out, and then the top one and bring it the other way. All right, and right click and finish object. All right, now another connector, so we need one that comes along here because our other swirly line will come down this way. So we get the connecting one. Start is there, bring it along. I probably want it 1, 2, 3, 4 again. Click and drag. All right, that's done, finish. And then the remaining line now, so we go this one here, come down to the center and down to the end. All right, tidy her up. That. Now this one I'm going to bring out the other way. You can do this any way you want in terms of these swirly lines, but I like to, you could do it this way if you want, but I like to do this one this way. And this one this way. And right click and finish object. All right, so that is done for our first outline. So this is the outline. Remember, we put the interfacing in the machine, and this just draws the outline, so it's the first part of it. Now make sure that all of these are the same color. As soon as you start to change the color on this first part, what it will do, the machine will stop thinking you want to change colors, change threads. So make sure that all these are the same color so that it continues to stitch the lot. Now I'd like to always check that this has worked properly. So what I'm going to do is click on the first one over here on the sidebar, press the shift key, click on the last one to highlight them all. Right click and generate stitches. Okay, so once that's done, what I do now is come down to the sim tab down the bottom here, and this just shows me if it's worked correctly. So here you go, you can see it's stitching along. I'll just speed it up a little. Yeah, it's good so far. Looking good. All right, awesome. So that's perfect. So that's the first part of this step. So now we'll go on to the next part. Okay, so the next part is, if you notice, remember in the last video, I know I keep going back to the last video, but you really need to watch that first before looking at this one, because it just explains things. It'll explain this a lot easier for you. So in the video, what we did was we started putting down material. So in the center here, we put a piece of material, and then it stitched around that piece of material, and then the machine stopped for us. We were able to take the hoop out and cut around that material. Okay, so this is what we're doing now. We're doing each of these separate little bits so that you can add the material and cut around it. So we're going to start with this middle piece. Okay, so what we're going to do, first of all, we might group all this other stuff we did here. So click on the first one, press the shift key, and click on the last one, and then right click and group one. Okay, so this puts everything together in a group and tidies it all up for us, so we don't get too confused with it all. Just remember that everything is still showing down here for that group. so you can see it all there. And you can ungroup by right clicking and going ungroup if you need to. Okay, so we want to do the first outline around this one. So come back to our little button here. This is the Create Outline Object tool, and you'll use it quite often. So click on that. And what we want to do is have Snap to Node selected here. All right, and we want to uncheck this one, Snap to Grid, and we want to keep that one there, Snap to Object Edges. Okay, so we'll start over here in the corner of this, and we want to click there, somewhere in the corner, and snap it in. It'll snap sort of into place there. And we want to come around here and click again, and then snap it along. See how it's snapping? It's because we've got this one selected. It's snapping to the object edges, which is, this is the object. Click on the circle and snap. Come down here, click and snap. See how good this is. Now again, if you're at home, take your time. See, that's not evening out, so I'd probably bring all that back. You take your time at home to do this right. I'm just going to speed through just to make the video go a little faster. So snap. You see how it's not quite exact. You'd want to take a little bit time and do more, click more often along these curves. In other words, you can click back a bit further instead of just clicking all the way across. That'll make it a little cleaner. But again, I'm just going to click really fast just to get through. You can see how, and again up to the end here, click and snap it over, so it snaps onto the other one. Okay, that's done. The first one is done. So we'll right click, finish object. And you can see how it's created it over here. That's great. Now what we want to do is make sure each of these ones we're doing, each of these outlines for each of these shapes is a different color to the previous one. And we do that so that the machine stops after each one. Okay, so just choose any color, really doesn't matter what you choose, and click on it up here and drag it down to here. Okay, so that's given us a different color. Now we're going to come over to this one here and do this one. Same thing again, you click on here. We'll start over here, click, and I'm going to click and drag. Click and drag. Right, here. So you're outlining the whole shape for each of these. Click and drag. That one's done. Right, click and finish. Again, change the color. Click and drag it down. Now move on to the next one here. Start here. Okay, and bring it across there. That one's done. Again, I'm changing the color. And again, back to this one, and on it goes. So I'll continue on with this and get to the end, and then we'll show you the next step. Okay, so I've finished all of those, as you can see over here. Now, things to watch out for in this, see how I've got, see this one here, how I'm going off a little bit? You want to make sure all that, see how all these are a little out of whack? That's why you want to click on this and highlight it to make sure you're pretty accurate. You don't want all this sort of stuff going on. I mean, I just rushed through this just to get this video done. So, but you want them to be pretty good. So use this zoom tool. If you click on that and just click once with your zoom tool, it just zooms right in and you'll be able to get a more accurate line there. So the better you do this, the more time you take with it, the better. Okay, so I've basically finished for the purposes of this video. So let's move back down. Get back down here. Now, again, what I want to do is make sure this has worked. So I click on the first one, forget the group up here, you've already done that. Just click on the second one down, hold the shift key, and then click them all, and right click and generate stitches. And then we'll come over here to the sim again, and we'll watch it and see if we've done the right thing. Now, what I have, before I go any further, I'll just pause that. What I have selected here is this one here. See how it says pause on color change? That's what I want. I want to see if the machine is going to stop for each color change. So let's press play again. Okay, and this is our outline again. We've seen this one before. Now it should stop right now. It has, that's good. We want the machine to stop at that point because we want to remove the hoop and we want to add our first color, a bit of material to this bit here. So that's good, it has stopped. So I'm going to press play again. Now it's doing the outline for that first one and it should stop. Yep. And now the second one there and stop. See how it's stopping between each one? That's what we want to see. Yep. This one. Yep. So it's stopping between each one. Yep, all looking good. Okay, done. So that's good. Again, I'm going to group all of these. So I'm going to click on the first one, hold the shift key, click on the last one, right click and group one. Okay, so that was step 2. Now we'll go on to step 3. Our final step now is to add the satin stitch around these curves here. So we're almost to the end. So what we want to do now, I'm just going to scroll in a little just to get a little bigger. That's probably too much. Okay, we're going to create the satin stitch now along this first line. So I'm going to click on this one here again, and then I'm going to click and drag. We're going to trace this line again. We're going to be tracing each of the lines. There's the first one. So I'm going to right click and finish the object. And now I'm going to create a connecting line down here. I want it to connect. So I'm going to click on this one. And we've got the start point there. So I'm going to click around here and then click and drag so it snaps. So that's the connection there. So right click and finish object. Now we'll come and do the same again here. Click on this one and trace it along again. And finish the object. And then the connection again, this one here. Right click, finish object, and we're just about there. Just have to trace this one. Finish object, the connection, and finish object. And now the last bit. Just might delete that one. I think I messed that up. Let's start again. Oops. Right click and finish object. Now all of these you see I've got the same color, but I just want to make sure that they're a different color to the previous grouping here. So if I click on that grouping and look at the last color, you see that's purple and these are all red now, which is great. If this was purple and all of these were purple, you need to change these because you need the machine to stop after this grouping here and before it continues on to this. So just make sure these are a different color to the previous grouping, and they can all be the same color. You want them all to be the same so it just stitches all that satin stitch out in one go. Okay, so that's done. Now what we want to do is generate the stitches for all of these. So we click on the first one, hold the shift key and click on the last one to select them all, then right click and parameters is what we want this time, and I'll just move that over. Now what you want to do is click on satin stitches here, and all I ever change here really is the width. So I come up here to width and I click on the word width, gives me that little pop-up, and I'm going to change this to 4.5. Now you can play around with this, change, make different widths if you like. I just found 4.5 was a nice width. So I'm going to click the tick box here and I'm going apply, or generate stitches actually. And there you go, so that's it there. So we can actually group these if you want. If you wanted to group these, you can do that as well. So everything's all grouped up. Essentially we're finished here. What I'm going to do is just make sure there's generated stitches for the whole lot. So I'm going to click on the first, hold the shift, click on the last, right click and just go generate stitches just to make sure everything's done. And then what I always do at the end is I go to the sim and I run everything through from start to finish just to make sure it's all looking good. Usually run it fast. And I just want to make sure it stops as we do, so I'm just going to click on each really fast. And there's the last bit here, and I'll just speed that up. Okay, all done. So you see how simple that was. So now we want to save this. So come up to here to design. I always save it in two different versions. I save it in the EOF version, which allows me to bring it back into Studio and make changes. And I save it in the format that's for my embroidery machine. So we'll first save it as an EOF. So we come up to design and we go save as. And I've got a folder here called EOF files. And I'm just going to click on that one. So I've got the already typed up here. I'm going to call it version 6 and save. Okay, and then I save it as now the embroidery file. So design, compile and put into Embird Editor up here. And then I choose my hoop. So I have a Janome Jeff and it's already selected. So I go OK. And then I put it in a different folder usually. I put it in a folder called Jeff Files. And I'll call it that, that's fine. Open. Stained glass, open. This is where I want to put it. Version 6, save, and that's done. So now I can actually transfer that onto a thumb drive or a card, depending what your embroidery machine uses, and I'll be able to stitch this out now. So hopefully that was helpful. If it was, I hope you can give us a like, and thank you for watching.